Welcome to Sudhanshu Dasgupta Memorial Debate 2024. This memorial debate was institutionalized by Nandita Dasgupta a few years back. Sudhanshu Dasgupta was an illustrious debater of his time, which Presidency has always been and will remain proud of. Nandita Dasgupta is an alumnus of Presidency College and she has created an endowment in the memory of her loving husband, Sudhanshu Dasgupta, for organizing an annual debate. Nandita ma'am, we thank you for your contribution in organizing this distinguished event. Now, on behalf of Presidency University Alumni Association, I request Vivash Chaudhary, Vice President of Presidency Alumni Association, to deliver the welcome address.
We welcome you to Sudhanshu Dasgupta Memorial Debate 2024. We are very fortunate to have a beautiful panel, the panel of illustrious personalities, and with the moderator, none other than Dr. Kunal Sarkar. To first give a big hand to Dr. Kunal Sarkar for accepting this. And this is a great moment for us. I remember in the ALSOC debate, when Presidency participated with Xavier School, the moderator was a Saint Stephanian, none other than Honorable Gopal Krishna Gandhi, the governor, the then governor of West Bengal. So now when Presidency past and present are fighting with each other, debating with each other, so we need a neutral person. So therefore from Medical College, Calcutta Medical College, Dr. Kunal Sarkar, and you know he is a very illustrious debater and very well-known personality in the world of debate. We welcome Honorable Johar Sarkar. We lovingly call Johorda. Give a big hand to him. He needs no introduction. He was a very vibrant student of Presidency and now Honorable Member of Parliament, Rajya Sabha. We have with us Somok Roy. Give a big hand. Student of physics, passed in 1974. We welcome him. He is also a very well-known debater and he debated many times for the past. And then we have Subroto Talukdar, former judge of Calcutta High Court, students of political science, 1979 batch. Welcome, Subroto da. And very famous, Tania Bharadwaj. Tania Bharadwaj, 2009. Oh, she is hiding. So she is also from political science, then did her post-graduation from LSE. When we will introduce the speakers, some more words will be spoken about them. And in the present team, you know, the team of Presidency, this is absolutely Presidency College versus Presidency University. So all the best. Sampurna Sharnal, first year. Jyotirmoy Dotto, second year. Rig Bhattacharya, third year. Srinjoy Devgupta, third year. So cheer for them. This is the place, what we called the sanctum sanctorium of debate, legacy of Presidency. This is the hall. We could have got much, sophisticated halls which we have created by Presidency University. But this is the hall, PLT1, where Sudhansu Dasgupta used to debate. He was the role model for all the debaters of Presidency post-1949. He graduated from Presidency from Economics Department in 1949, and he became a name in the domain of debate. And this is the hall where many stalwarts like Amartya Sen and others, they used to debate. And Professor Jyotirmoy Pal Chaudhary is here. Thank you, sir, for coming. He is many things. He was past president of Alumni Association, and he is now civil servant maker of West Bengal. Most of the IAS of West Bengal cracked under the coaching of Professor Jyotirmoy Pal Chaudhary. So all of you will be aware of that. Government of West Bengal has already instituted a project in collaboration with Presidency Alumni Association for civil servant aspirants. I think some of you have already joined there. And then I must say none other than the famous barrister, former Advocate General, Jayanto Mitra is here. তোমাদেরকে বলে রাখি জয়ন্ত মিত্রর অ্যাপয়েন্টমেন্ট পেতে 3 মাস লাগে, আমাদের 2 দিন লাগে। At the free, that is also free. So জয়ন্ত দা is here. এটা আর কিছু বলার নেই আমাদের আর কি। And the first lady principal of Presidency College, Momota Rai is here. Momota di. এখানে যারা আছেন সবাই খুব ইলাস্ট্রিয়াস। এখানে আইএস একজন বসে আছেন, আইপিএস চম্পকদা বসে আছেন। আমি আর এদের কথা বলছি না, কারণ বলতে গেলে আর ডিবেটই আরম্ভ হবে না। সো অ্যান্ড আই এম ভেরি হ্যাপি কি রেজিস্ট্রার অফ প্রেসিডেন্সি ইউনিভার্সিটি দেবজ্যোতি কোনার, ডক্টর দেবজ্যোতি কোনার অ্যান্ড ডক্টর অরুণ মাইতি, the dean, your guardian of presidency, they are here. He is defending the college, university. Okay, thank you. So, without telling much about our presence, we expect, and I welcome press. Z is here. Thank you, Z, for coming. And I think other press has also come. I don't know all of them. Times of India, yes, Times of India is here. Thank you. Times of India, oh, thank you. Shunando Sarkar is alumnus who is perhaps the chief editor of Times of India, Kolkata, or something like that. So in press you will get a lot of your presidency alumni. So thank you. This is all what I want to say. The debating rules will be pronounced by Dr. Kunal Sarkar. And before that, I will request Professor Jyotirmoy Pal Chaudhuri to say a few words about the legacy. যেটা আপনারা দেখেছেন, অমর্ত্য সেনকে এখানে ডিবেট করতে দেখেছেন, সুখময় চক্রবর্তীকে দেখেছেন। একটু এদেরকে বলুন, আজকের প্রজন্ম একটু শুনুক, তারপরে ইটস এ ভেরি ব্রিফ। Professor Jyotirmoy Pal Chaudhuri, the legacy, the legend.
Good afternoon, fellow Presidency alumni. I'm not supposed to be here because you have come here to listen to debate. I also came to listen to debate. But I've been asked by the Vice President of the Association to say a few words about the past of the debating culture of Presidency. I joined Presidency as a student of first year arts in 1951. 1951. And at that time, there was a timetable said that Friday 2:40 onwards with no class, which is the colloquium. I didn't know the meaning of the word colloquium first year, so I stayed in the hostel, went back to the hostel, looked at the dictionary, found that academic session, seminar, etc. So what is it? First Friday came. At that time in third year, we had Amartya Sen in economics, Shikamar Chakraborty in economics, Parthashariti Gupta in history, Borunde Nitishan Gupta, and many other people. They all came in the hostel and sat here. It was the only hall in the university campus at that time for debating purposes. And first day we had Amartya Sen speaking. We knew about him. He came from Bolpur, occupying the first position in intermediate science, the grandson of Pirimohan Sen. He was speaking. Second person was Parthashariti Gupta, son of Shaimal Gupta, ICS, another Presidency alumnus. Third one was Jyotirmoy Datta, who later on became the son-in-law of Buddha Bose, the writer, marrying Meenakshi. And fourth one was, I can't remember the name. And when I first heard Amartya Sen speak, spellbound. The personality, the sense of humor, the logic, the ability to criticize the opponents, we are spellbound. So we never missed any lecture, the debate, but Amartya Sen took part. The culture of debate, I think, was a very important feature of our days and presidents at that time. And this was the place where everything took place. This was the place where everything took place. We had the culture of having a past-present debate during Founders Day at that time too. I'm glad that it has been revived. That was a culture of having past-present debate on Founders Day. The first Founders Day debate, I remember the names of the people who took part in that. First was Professor Hiren Mukherjee, the great parliamentarian, historian. Second was Sudhansu, the blind barrister who became the Member of Parliament. Third was Amlan Datta, economist, superb debater. And fourth was Professor Nirmal Bhattacharya, political science scientist who taught at Scholastic College, later became Member of Parliament, Member of Council of West Bengal. The four spoke, and I was organizing it, so we all went back there to give them coffee and sandwiches from coffee house. That was the type we always had that. So the culture was remarkable. Later on, we had one person called Kamal Datta, physicist, later on taught at Delhi University, top class debater. So I'm very delighted to see that this is happening back now here, and that date chosen is the Founders Day Week celebrations. We also had organized an intercollegiate debate competition when I was in charge of the college students' council. We had medical college, law college, university, presidency. We thought girls are missing. All these colleges are boys' colleges. So we phoned Dr. Rama Chaudhary, the principal of Women's College at that time. Could you send two girls for taking part in the debate here? Phone me tomorrow. So I phoned her tomorrow, next day again. No, they don't want to go to presidency. They're too shy to face the students here. So we had no girls. We made only debate competition. And medical college took the trophy. Vishnu Mukherjee, Dr. Mr. Mukherjee was a good debater. He was the best, considered best. I still remember the name. You know? And once we thought of having a Bengali debate, first time and the last time. Amartya Sen was there, and our class was represented by Shishir Das, the famous Bengali professor of Delhi University, was a national professor there. Shishir was in our team. And Nalini Chakraborty, who became a bureaucrat later on, and used to Egyptian magazine called Pratima. He was the other one. We never heard Amartya Sen speak in Bengali. The topic was Adhunik Bangla Kapita Abhornatir Dige. That's exactly the topic. There also Amartya Sen surprised everybody by taking the trophy. He began by saying, Jaha Shambhav na, tar moddhe ora dekhen Shambhavana. That's how he started. And he got the best debaters prize, and our class got the total prize, actual prize. Shishir Das represented us, Nurani represented us. So that was the type of thing that used to happen in Presidency in those days. And I'm glad that it's still kept alive, and so many old people are here. But I think I'm the oldest. Jayanto is 3 years junior to me by age. 3. 54. Joined 2054. I'm 51. So it's okay. So I'm glad to be here, and I'll come tomorrow also for joining the tea party. And I sincerely hope you enjoy it. Thank you very much. Thank you.
At the outset, I call upon the stage our esteemed moderator for today, who is an illustrious icon in the debating circles, Dr. Kunal Sarkar, sir. Can we please have a big round of applause for him? We are proud to have you with us, sir. Now, I have the honor to introduce the two teams for today. In the team past, we have Johar Sarkar, Somak Rai, Subrata Talukdar, and Tanya Bharadwaj. Can we please have you on the stage? Now over to moderator sir, Dr. Kunal Sarkar, to start the proceedings. I request you all to please mute your mobile phones so as to not interrupt the proceedings of today. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. At the outset, my profound apologies. Since I come from the edges of rural civilization, it's taken me a little while longer than anticipated. I'm absolutely sure that both the timekeeper and the panel of judges are completely incorruptible, even though we happen to be in this city. And there are certain assumptions that one has to make in life as we go along, and that is the first assumption. Before we get on with the nitty-gritty of the debating, you take us back in time. First of all, without any ado at all, I am intellectually dwarfed in the presence of this gathering, the speakers, the audience, the seniors, and to you I pay my heartfelt respects. To Madam Dasgupta, I will share the afternoons when I think somewhere in the vicinity of the Dhakuria Bridge, was Professor Dasgupta. You were there at that time. And time and again, from our institution, in the vicinity of Park Street, we used to bother you. And whenever we approached Professor Dasgupta to come speak or judge a debate, I still remember he would hear out everything. And then came Professor Dasgupta's pregnant pause. And after he would pause for about a few seconds, would come his reactions to what you said. You really take us back in time, because in the pre-YouTube era, for us, public speaking meant Professor Dasgupta. For us, public speaking meant N. Vishwanathan. For us, public speaking meant Professor P. Lal. We pay our homage to Professor Sudhansu Dasgupta. So, ladies and gentlemen, you have this, not exactly a saber rattling, but the rattling of words, phrases, vowels, and consonants between the past and the present. Now, comparing the past and the present is really almost like a genetic speciality of people of this part of the world. We've been doing it umpteen times a day, probably a couple of times every hour for the last 50 years. But on occasions like this, we have an opportunity to synthesize our thoughts, our experience, our knowledge, our data. And at a time when, you are a few hours from away, when the great Indian frothy cappuccino of religion and politics will be served and served hot to the world, that this 200-year-old institution has chosen this afternoon, this early evening, to separate the froth from the coffee. And it is this evening that your teams, past and present, who better, will debate out the issue that is India more religious than political. As we debate, we will do a few things because even I am extremely cautious with Jawharda sitting next to me. First thing is, we will not behave like parliamentarians, right? So that is the first opening to the debate. And even we cannot hold Jawharda responsible for that. Judges will know there is one rule, sirs and madams, we are not following today, and that is there are no evictions and expulsions, right? So we seem to be going a different way now because it is not just important to be absent, to be silent in words. It is very necessary in our conversations today to be absent physically, right? So these are the two rules that we are not following this afternoon. In sequential order, as always and as always expected, we have the proposition and the opposition coming and speaking to us, making the strongest possible case they possibly can for all of 6 minutes. At 5 minutes, you will give them a gentle bell. At 6 minutes, we request them that, that time has come for them to take leave. You hear all of them out, and then we have a summing up. Now, who does the summing up? Who actually draws the straws? You please decide as the debate goes on, and by the time the last speaker has spoken. Sorry? It's up to you. It's up to you. Okay, fine. And obviously, the opposition will sum up first, and then the proposition, and then comes the most critical part of any debate, that you, the House, will vote and say that for whom the bell has tolled and who you have chosen to support this evening. So, may I request the debate to be opened, and with that, we invite Srinjoy Dasgupta to open the account for the proposition. Srinjoy, floor is yours. Good luck.
A very good afternoon, respected moderator sir, esteemed members of the Alumni Association, fellow members of the panel, and everybody else present here. The motion for today's debate is Indians are more religious than political. And there's no denying that fact. Why so? Let me start off with a small example. Let me start with a brief take on how the binary of religion and politics is not exactly an interdependent relation, but rather how the former supersedes the later. In colonial India, the British administration sought to fashion a very westernized style state structure and realized that the primordial groupings on caste and especially religion were the appropriate basis of a political identity and a political community. The practice of homogenizing certain state practices and the reinforcement of a traditional identity based purely on religion and caste, to which Indian nationalism then did not have any answer, and still we do not find any answer in the present case, ultimately legitimized the partition of India. This small example exactly proves as to why I believe Indians are more religious than political. I'd like to sum up my entire argument in 3 basic points. Primary among them is that the notion of the entire debate rests upon the crux of an essential concept of identity formation. Strikingly, the point that needs to be highlighted here is the story behind modernity's reconstruction of identity. The introduction of a very westernized rationalist school of thought in the Indian society bifurcated society's common sense and divided the essence of a very Indianized culture on a radical process. However, despite this bifurcation, there is one single discourse. And that is where the motion lies correct. A small example would again make things clearer for everybody here. The Brahmins and the Shudras may offer prayers to their deities in different ways, which imply that the Brahmins might do it in Sanskrit and the Shudras might do it in their own vernacular language. However, both of them do realize that praying forms a very essential part of a greater social character which they both share. Secondly, if we take into consideration the British colonial policy, we do see that communalist ideas are seen as an inevitable part of shaping a modernist identity formation, which the colonial rulers did use to their benefit. The constant reference to the Mughal emperor as a substantial overlord just to derive legitimacy to rule is one major example of that. The regular hits at different practices, religious practices of the Indians, the crystallization of the notorious policy of divide and rule might be political in implication, but are overtly religious in character. All of these arguments do point to a certain direction that this is only how religion supersedes politics. Secondly, what I think must be mentioned here is the idea of what I call a composite culture. This was a result of pure, unfiltered religious curiosity. The composite culture is said to have two interconnected ideas. First, the rise of a cultural notion in which both the Hindu and the Muslim ideals sublimated, leading to a development of a subculture. And an example here, for example, the rise of Hindustani classical music. And secondly, which is probably one of the most important points where the motion passes, is a peaceful coexistent relationship between the two, which translates into no persistent hindrance to each other's beliefs. Thirdly, I would like to focus on the dichotomy of the sacred and the mundane, and how the former is of greater importance in pre-modern times. The temple and the mosque, the household puja and the namaz remained more crucial than a market and a court, and thus these interactions helped in the non-creation of public space with extended state control. While there have been few cases and examples of organized violence, the constant reference to an abstract notion of unity in diversity shifted the focus of credit to a very nationalist elevation of the political leaders who tried to change a very existing notion of a composite culture. This is again a great example of how politics comes into religion and makes it fatal. Therefore, the opposition might talk about religious differences to be a reason of social conflict. But what the entire house must realize is that the social world back then and now was not constructive enough, was not structured in a way that led to modern day definition of what we call as violence. And we all know what acted as a catalyst in the case of modern violence. Any guesses? Yes, you're correct, it is politics. On a concluding note, what I would put forward is the very fact that no matter how politically organized state India becomes in the future or is presently, every political aspirant, and I repeat, every political aspirant would hit at the base of the very religious overtones of an Indian character to be a prominent stakeholder. That is how things did exist, and that is how they will continue to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Presidency alumni, for this opportunity. I belong to a period when there was no debate. It was a one-sided opinion. Of course, it's almost like that even now, but it was completely one-sided. This PLT had all sorts of illustrations, and there was a ban. That was the period, 69 to 72. Despite that, Supriya Dasgupta became Chaudhary, and some of us went and debated and came back and got clobbered. Friends, and it's so nice to see the young team on the other side. We always wished we also had some old fogies to contend with, but we didn't. To begin with, we must take pride in the fact that Presidency or Hindu College stood out because of logic, because of its obsession with evidence and empiricism, not opinions, not the Shastras. That is the beginning point, and that tradition must continue. On that note, we have to start with the word religious. more religious than political. Religious comes out of the Oxford Dictionary as believing strongly. So don't go by superficial notions of what is religious. It's a strong belief, obeying laws. I wonder who on earth in this room obeys laws of religion, whatever they are, and is devout. I claim to be exempted, and most thinking persons would also be exempted from devoutness, from piety. So before we hammer a subject, we must remember that they need to qualify within what the Oxford and Cambridge dictionaries speak about. After all, we are obeying that colonial culture. So this is what Oxford Advanced one says, and Cambridge says, religious is strong belief. Just a casual belief or nodding at a god before going into exam doesn't qualify as religiosity. It's only an insurance policy. It's only a way of telling God that take a good look at me during the next struggle. Now, what is political? So, having debunked the term religious for this topic, what is political? Again, Cambridge Dictionary says, relating to government, concerned with government policy, involved in parties. I would claim distinction for the first two, the relating to government. Involved in parties, I don't know. I am an MP for absolutely no fault of mine. That is absolutely wrong. But then, as I started by saying, more religious than political. Where is the evidence? Where do you see 80% of the nation or the registered part of the nation going out to vote? When did you last see 80% of India going to churches and temples? Despite provocations, attractions, and a deliberate blitzkrieg, pre-election blitzkrieg, we will not find everybody inclined in that direction. So let's not go by superficial impressions. Politics is something, I mean, we are not getting into the cleanliness or the dirtiness about it. We're not here to discuss whether somebody made money there or here. I'm looking at politics from the dictionary point of view, an active interest in governance. Everyone here is interested in governance, whether the drain will go in front of my house, whether water will reach, and that is your political civic involvement. 100% of the people are interested in politics in that sense. The wiser ones stay far away from parties. Now, having said that, it relates to jobs, it relates to governance, it relates to elections, it relates to electricity, it relates to road, transport. The entire gamut of human activity is covered by the word politics. Now, you take your choice. Are we bothered about the political aspect of government, or are we bothered about a created blitzkrieg, a propaganda around one particular edifice that remains as a monument to vandalism, absolute vandalism, absolute lack of tolerance. Twice, not once. First time when a politically armed warrior chose that particular spot, why on earth? They were just showing their political strength. It was an evidence of political strength to build it, and greater vandalism when that structure was also torn down. These are expressions of politics. These are expressions of politics. Politics is more of a cover for, my mistake. Religion is more of a cover for political strategy. And you don't call an institution an idea by the cover. But I sit next to Mohua. I meet her every second day. And she wears a different dress every day. I don't know what's the stock. But you don't, just because she's wearing tanchoi, you don't say, tanchoi Mohua. Just because she's wearing a particular sari, you don't say that. You don't describe as a Banarasi. Everyone knows that politics is the politics uses that camouflage to get across the point to you. Political Indians are wise enough are clever enough, they have displayed it as a vote to understand that they are in tune with what they want and they dump governments whenever they want. The use of religion may suffice up to one part, 2 elections, maybe 3, but that is enough. India will break the spell of a person who demands his place in history, and we have reserved a place for him in history, a place somewhere between the intolerant Aurangzeb and Muhammad bin Tughlaq. We have kept a place for him. If he wishes to use religion as a political strategy, we should not be fooled by that narrative. This is the temple of logic, Presidency and Hindu College, and we should not be swayed by mere semantics, mere words, and mere narratives. Thank you very much. I may have to slip out at 5:30 there somewhere else, so forgive me in advance. Tanya will do the sum up.
I mean, that was very clever, Jawharda. So you prove a point that you definitely weren't a politician by mistake, right? I think you were anything but that. What you refer to, the second great act of vandalism, it is alleged that as the second great act of vandalism was going on, the great liberal Indian Prime Minister was in deep prayer. Yeah, and the liberal Indian Prime Minister, when asked that what on earth was happening, probably had retorted, "This is religion and that is politics," right? Strange are the ways of the world. Now, I have a feeling that the proposition has regrouped themselves, because listening, they want to pierce Jawharda's armor sooner rather than later. And as Jawharda was going on firing his salvos, they've tweaked their batting order a little bit. It is Jyotirmoy who's coming next.
But I would apologize for being nowhere close to them. I will try. But the fact is that, first of all, let me start off with the premise that there is a deliberate conflation of religiousness and religiosity by the side opposition today, and that latter takes precedence. Religiosity in India takes precedence over religion. And what does being religious mean? What does religiousness mean? Religiousness is more of a personal matter. It's a desire to connect with the Creator and seek His blessings. Whereas in the words of historian Bipan Chandra, religiosity is intense emotional commitment to the matters of religion and the tendency to let religion and religious emotions intrude into the matters of non-religious areas of life and beyond individuals' private and moral world. And this religiosity is pervasive and widespread in Indian society, particularly because of 2 factors. First of all, there are a vast number of illiterates, and when it comes to the illiterates, they become the easiest target for politicians. And after all, they cannot refer to the dictionaries, after all. So the point is, they do not understand. There is no understanding whatsoever about this subtle yet fundamental difference between religiousness and religiosity among the illiterate population, and they become the easiest targets of the politicians to manipulate as they are more strongly anchored in their religion, caste, and ethnicity. And blinded by religious stigmas and more of parochialism, they cannot think about what is beneficial for them or the nation. Rather, they think from the perspective anchored in their socio-economic and political realities, for which Karl Marx called religion the opium of the masses. As far as the voting behavior in India is concerned, people tend to vote mostly like their parents, and voting behavior is mostly shaped by political socialization at home. And most of these parents tend to be conservative and religious. And this is testified by the fact that the electorate is more and more welcoming parties that are avidly and avowedly given to religious nationalism. And when these parties are coming to power, they are pandering to the worst prejudices and bigotries and trying to entrench them all the more, because only by so doing they can delude these people from demanding proper education, proper healthcare, proper future prospect, and so on. And this has weaponized and politicized our religion in many ways. And these people, the masses as well as the government are complicit in this. They are trying to shame and hate those who oppose to judge political performance by governments merely through the lens of political bigotry, religious bigotry. And the majority of Indians have started believing that their religion is safer in the hands of those who claim that they identify themselves as the custodian of religion, of their religion. And to my mind, there is a peculiarity in the psyche of the Indian voters that they tend to affiliate religion with politics, with government and the state. And if one of us is going to agree with any one of them, they are a disagreement to our own religion. And this kind of negative religiosity has given rise to some of the most unhealthy, illiberal tendencies in our society, which is demonstrated by violence, bigotry, and cow vigilantism or Gauraksha. And I would leave you with one example from last year of Muhammad Ishaq, a disabled Muslim man was tied to a pole, his nails were broken, two of his fingers were cut off, beaten to death by a mob. And on the basis of what crime and allegation? That he had stolen a piece of prasad, a banana, at a Hindu festival that was observing Ganesh Chaturthi. And instead of being arrested for murder, these offenders were let go by the police. And after an initial inquiry, the police concluded that the man was a thief. And later it turned out to be that he was not a thief. But even if he was, does that empower a mob to murder an innocent human being? I mean, is this the India that we proud to live in? I leave that to the audience. And finally, we are seeing in India, I think the Indian public is more interested today in issues like the Hindu resurgence, the reawakening of Hinduism, and the Bharatiya Sanskriti. But I must remind everybody that this reawakening of Hinduism is characterized more by a chauvinist zeal than common sense. We are ready to believe in stupid fantasies about the internet having existed in the days of the Mahabharata. Otherwise, how could Sanjay narrated the blind king Dhritarashtra the live events from the battlefield? Things like Udan Khatola, the jet travel having been common in the Vedic era, and I have heard this no less than the Prime Minister, that the earliest evidence of plastic surgery comes from ancient India, that is Lord Ganesha's trunk. So I mean, come on, these are the things that have been preached by public platforms, and the public are digesting this blithely. And finally, no wonder everybody in India today claim to be a bhakt, and bhakti, despite being restricted to the puja room, is carried out extensively in public and in the social media predominantly. And another point is that we have descended into a very regressive society, where in the name of defending Bharatiya Sanskriti and religion, we are denying people their basic rights. I think this very Bharatiya Sanskriti does not permit Indian courts to uphold homosexuality as natural. The fact is that even when
please wind up. Huh?
Yes,
your bell is gone.
Exactly. Even when a person no less than Mohan Bhagwat acknowledged the fact that homosexuality has been traditionally accepted in Indian culture, a group of people on social media
We've got to continue in the sum up, please.
Yes.
Huh? We can't be unfair to the other speakers.
He has been hounded.
Last concluding
Therefore,
sentence.
in the name of defending religion, we have descended to a very obnoxious situation, and religion has mired politics in a very ugly way. Therefore, the House, I think, rightly believes that Indians are more religious than political. Thank you very much.
Well done, Jyotirmoy. Very well done. I just pick up two threads from where you've left. Obviously, plastic surgery has to be one of them. And I was in great trepidation that when people will come up with the ancient example of cardiac surgery, and when they did not, I came to the inevitable conclusion that people were essentially heartless in those times. Right. On a more serious note, you do mention that, about illiteracy. I was going through the fundamentals of the poverty reduction statistics. I don't know, some of you may have seen it out last week. Poverty reduction statistics for the last 15 years. Not a word is uttered about the fact that we are finding it well nigh impossible to make the last 20% of India literate. So illiteracy in India stands at a Brahmanical constant of 20%, and it's been more than a decade and a half. So I don't know, like the Hindu rate of growth, whether you consider that to be Hindu rate of literacy, time will tell. We've had fantastic speeches for and against, and it is now time for Shomuk Roy against the motion to return the logical compliments of Jyotirmoy.
I was vastly impressed by the respected chairman, sir, members of the House. I was vastly impressed by the brilliant exposition given by Srinjoy, I think. Wonderful. I would have greatly benefited if it were translated into plain English, but nevertheless, we'll let that pass. And Jyotirmoy has done his best to prove the motion, which I was going to say. The Gangasagar Mela, which has just ended, it threw up some novel ways of making money. Now, one of them was to rent out a cow, or more specifically, the cow's tail, to hold on to, because the devout believe that if after the holy dip you can catch a cow by its tail, it would afford you a sure ticket to heaven. I don't know whether it was a tatkal ticket, for if the cow decided to thrash with its hind legs, it could have been a tatkal ticket. This is the kind of absurdity religion goes by. This is why an exasperated Swamiji was driven to comment, and I quote, "We are a race which for hundreds of years has been busy in discussing such momentous problems as whether we should drink a glass of water with the left hand or the right. This is religion for you in the Indian context. And if this is religion for you, even 100 years after Swamiji's death, we are still engulfed in this mire, and the proposition wins hands down, because if this is religiosity, then we are religious. But is it? I ask you, is it religion? True religion attempts to unite, not to divide. True religion attempts to transcend the mundane and address the universal which is within each man and oneself. True religion is beautiful, it's courageous, it's truly religion delivers. It does not mire you in the quagmire of opium. It does not drown sense in polemics. It does not kill good sense. It does not build religions to pseudo-historical entities in whose name afterwards unthinkable abominations can be performed, like slitting out the fetus from the womb of a pregnant woman. And later on, further religious people fate the perpetrators. This is not true religion. If this be religion, I don't want to be in this religious India. Let us go to politics. It's very difficult to talk about politics without invoking Aristotle, because after all, it was he who said that man is a political animal by nature. But to me, it seems irrelevant. For one, Aristotle's polity excluded women. his political animal was gender specific. It excluded people who worked for a living. It excluded the slaves. For another, Aristotle's ambit of thought was based upon the Greek city-states, which were too small for carrying out his dictum that everyone rules by some arrangement so that all people rule. So it is not translatable to a multitudinous country like India. Of course, he had some things to say about the public participation in jurisprudence, which are still relevant today. But I shall not be making use of them. Let me instead transport you from classical Greece to the small town of Motihari in North Bihar. The date is 15th April 1917. A diminutive man with a shaven head alights from the train. His objective is to inquire into complaints about indigo planters, about atrocities upon farmers. Over the next few months, he and his small band of volunteers, who were mostly young lawyers, busy themselves into documenting the farmers' grievances. By the time he is finished, the number of complaints documented, more than 8,000. The outcome, the appointment of a commission of inquiry by the district administration and the passing of the Champaran agrarian law. Need I tell you the name of this gentleman? I need not. It was M.K. Gandhi. The political Indian has triumphed over the religious Indian. For no prayer meetings have been held, no bhajans have been sung, no pujas have been offered to religious deities. But the mighty English government has succumbed to the politics of the lowly Indian. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roy. Very passionate, very forceful deposition. Actually, you know, there are lots of people who had very strong connections with the Indigo movement who were not otherwise remembered. And I happen to be living in a street named after one such character which has become famous for all the wrong reasons. And that road is called Harish Mukherjee Road. So if you ask anybody why on earth Harish Mukherjee Road is very famous in contemporary history, he's going to babble to you the answer which is obvious. It's a very well fortified community ensuring the line of succession. But that Harish Mukherjee used to be a young journalist who died his life fighting for the cause of the indigo planters. And you walk in up and down the road, you don't even find one plaque in his name. Such are the ways of the world. Mr. Roy emphasized tremendously on what he considers to be true religion. It reminded me of the coffee industry, who became very nervous when people started putting chicory into coffee, because chicory is not from the coffee beans, it's a thrown away product. And Nescafe and Nestle had come up with the campaign called This is True Coffee, as opposed to the other, which was called the pseudo coffee, the Garib Aadmi Ka coffee. There is a brand, I will not say which one it is. So he has raised a very important point over there. So from indigo to coffee, we now ask Shampurna Shanyal to take the motion forwards.
So good evening, ladies and gentlemen, my esteemed moderator and my opponents. I, Sampurna Sanyal, stand before you to engage on a very profound matter of social significance that the House believes Indians are more religious than political. Well, Mr. Moderator, as given by the House, believe legitimizing a concept like the motion is very primitive in its role. As my previous speaker, Srinjoy Devgupta, already mentioned about Sudipto Kubirat's theory, we as humans have a tendency to actually demographically criticize something into specific boxes. There lies the problem. That is the problem which is taking us, like gender, male, female, or maybe light or darkness. Ladies and gentlemen, that rigid, very rigid binary conception lies the problem. There is no politics without religion, and there is no religion without politics. That is the end of the question right there. Now the mankind, but still I will do the engage to the topic. Similarly, religion is not a trait in an individual. It's the inevitable truth which Indians have on their psyche the most. India boasts a very diverse and rich cultural heritage, which is deeply rooted into their spiritual senses, and which actually adds more values than any political ideology, sir. Despite its vast diversity, religion has been a unifying force in India, the true religion as spoken earlier. But there is also an exemplifying discourse of differences which it has added to every individual. So I want to ask a question. So has this unity in diversity often transcends the political affiliations? Most certain, yes. Religious institutes like temples, churches, mosques have substantial influence in shaping the community, and it has suppressed the purpose of political institution at every places in the society. In India, the prerequisite of being a political is actually religious, and therefore I stand by the motion very vividly, creating the pact of India which religion has created, politics could not. Religion has always added a sense of purpose and the meaning of life to every individual. There are a lot of ethical and moral guidelines which individuals tend to follow in the name of religion. Supposedly, like cows are considered very sacred in Hinduism, and similarly on that case, pigs are considered as a mode of impurity in Islam. Consumption of both in indirect way is taglined with a sin of sin. Similar evidences can be found dating back to the history, which is of pre-independence, is revolt of 1857, which was labeled a lot of times as an act of first political encounter by the Indians under the colonial rule. So, was it entirely political? I don't think so. Even if it was fought political with strategies and arms, the seeds were born on religious ground, and there is no question about it. It was about the infield rivals which were greased with rumored cow and pig fats, which added on to the disrespect to the sentiments of Hindus and Muslims, and there is no question to be made over here. Besides of all the problems which my opponent might take about the disrespect and everything which British officials actually did in a political manner to the soldiers, it was religion which added to the last nail to the coffin for start of this ferocious fight in 1857. My very respected opponent has quite enlightened us about all the governmental usage of political significance over religion. Despite of all the secular and religiously tolerant agendas in the constitution which is mentioned, and my honored opponent has something said that should be followed by the individuals, sir, the society works quite different from what should be followed right now, including religious violence, misuse of spiritual sentiments, and communal tensions. Operation Blue Star, which actually took place in 1984, was a military action, and that was ordered by the Indian government to remove the militants who had fortified the Golden Temple, which is considered the holy site of the Sikhs. This was a mere political order which turned into a massacre, which pointed the whole world about the religious vulnerability in India. Religious tensions not only abides Hindu and Muslims. Every religion in India is spiritual and can narrow down any political regimes at any given point of time. We all know India is currently under a very religiously nationalist government,
who responds to threats with a more sentimental format, which they receive from the people of India, which simply shows the vulnerable discourse on the religious ground which Indians have. Gujarat riot, we all are very accustomed with the example of the Gujarat riot, which took place that highlighted basically the deep-seated religious tensions and raised concerns about the communal harmony in India. The events were widely criticized by the whole world, and the aftermath of the riots prompted discussions on the religious tolerance, social harmony, and the role of the government in ensuring the protection of the citizen, irrespective of their classes and all. So I would just, and this is India, everyone, where the most important, unfortunate, but the interesting fact lies here. This is the same government who were allegedly responsible for the Gujarat riot. It is right now sitting at the power of the government to host a new mythical interpretation on 22nd of January. This is the same government. At the end, I would like to conclude with the same fact I began my speech with. Politics is not an absolute. Religious pen will always be mightier than any political sword, hence prove that the motion is absolutely correct. Thank you.
Thank you. Actually, I really forget, when is the last time I've been to see one of these run-of-the-mill Bangla films. But you clear a confusion for me if you can. As I was coming down the way to Presidency, I think there is a film to be released somewhere in a few days' time. And in half the posters, this film is called Mental. And in the other half, it is called Sentimental. Right? So I really think that the producer-director for that movie, they haven't made up their minds yet between the sentimental and the mental. And probably they could have been present in this debate this evening, right? So such is very well spoken. I think, the energy was brilliant from Shampurna. And
Gentlemen, Moderator, Chairman Sir, my task here is to speak against the motion. I really have no problem with the motion, as long as the word more is not there. The question of being more religious than political is an insult to the Indian identity, because India is known for its pluralism. Its constitution takes care of a democratic state, not a theocratic state. And the issue that there will be overlapping identities is an accepted fact. I concede to the House that yes, Indians are both religious and political. But to say it is more religious than political is where I join issue. Because religion, as Swami Vivekananda also put it, is a way of awakening yourself. And it's a mode of awakening yourself, it's a matter of personal faith. If it expresses itself in a political way, in a certain direction, it does not mean political issues of the day, meaning good governance, a good economy, etc., are driven under the carpet. The political parties may have, my last speaker was a powerful speaker. She referred to certain incidents. These are passionate manifestations of a particular group, but that does not identify a political party. The independence movement, as my speaker, Mr. Shomok Roy, pointed out, was a movement based on a particular, it was a movement where both people of all religions participated, but the objective was a political objective. So I really have a problem with the use of the word more. It defeats, India is a vast nation. We all understand it. It is a vast nation where there are deep and large demographic divides. There are people who belong to one religion and people who belong to the other. There is a political narrative which governs the demographic divide. But to say that the political narrative defines the Indian voter is an insult to the Indian voter, is an insult to the Indian psyche. We are equally religious as we are political. I have a problem with the word more. One of the speakers referred to the issue of the cow being a sacred symbol. In the famous case of Raj Narayan versus Indira Gandhi, the Allahabad High Court decided in favor of Indira Gandhi by saying, yes, she could be allotted the cow and the calf symbol. That is a political symbol, not a religious symbol at all. When Sikkim became a state of India, there was a case before the Honorable Apex Court, S.C. Podial versus 1973, which said, why are you reserving 12 seats for the Sikkim Buddhist Lepcha community? It is a religious situation. The Supreme Court held no. The Buddhist order, the Sangha, which is the part of the Sikkimese culture, follows a particular historical perspective. It adds to the social development. It adds to the political development as well. Religion is a manner of defining themselves, but that does not take away from the end product, which is the political identity of the Sikkimese lepcha. Therefore, as the Anglo-Indians have, so do the Sikkimese lepcha were given 12 seats in the Sikkim Legislative Assembly. Arundhati Roy said quite succinctly and quite presciently that India is an ancient people living in a recent nation. The question is, this bigotry should not, sitting here in the fields of logic, really come out from my friends on the other side. The Presidency College is known for its rather far-fetched thinking. This utterly bigotic view that Indians are more religious than makes us sound medieval, makes us sound primitive. We are in a political arena where, of course, there will be free play of religion, many other aspects. Many other aspects make up the political identity of a man. We have political parties which have agendas, which I need not repeat. So in these circumstances, how do we say as educated, informed individuals that it is religion which actually overwhelms politics in this country? Sampurna, the last speaker, was quite emphatic about the present dispensation. It is the government of the time. The question is, we are not supporting any particular government of the time from this side of the house, but there are issues which are like digitization of India, the startup economy, the other issues which also matter to the persons. There are issues of handing out the rural employment programs. These are also issues which govern irrespective of religion. But to seize upon one aspect of, say, any issue which is comfortable to a political party does not define the Indian narrative. So I would really say that this topic, and my first speaker here on the other side, Srinjoy, has spoken of a composite culture, and the other speakers have also somewhere, I'm glad that they have somewhere understood the affiliation of religion to politics and vice versa. My point is, this affiliation is nothing to complain about. In India, as vast as we are, this affiliation would remain. That does not make one more than the other. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Especially to the youngsters in the audience, if you ever required a 6-minute example of how to synthesize complex argument into a very soluble narrative, you've seen it exhibited brilliantly, right? So if you ever get a recording of this speech, listen to it as how the synthesis of verbal logic works. Justice had no doubt at all that both religion and politics exist. He had severe objections to the fact that when you try to pretend that one outweighs the other. And I think our friend Rick Bhattacharya has got a job cut out for him. Rick, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Good evening to one and all present here. Respected moderator, sir, when the House opines that Indians are more religious than they are political, it is not an opinion which is divorced from reality, nor is it too far-fetched from reality. And hence I stand firmly in support of the motion. It is interesting to note that we are standing here debating on such a pertinent issue on the premises of the very first colonial university in India, which was established for the education, mind you, of the Hindu gentlemen. Hence it was named the Hindu College. When my first speaker, Srinjoy, pointed out that colonial modernity reshapes identity based solely on religious and caste lines, he was not wrong. Now my fellow speakers have established it well that Indians have always been markedly religious in their sentiments and affections. Whether it was pre or post-independence, colonial or post-colonial, the politicization of religion has been an undeniably persistent feature of Indian society. The birth of the modern Indian nation, as well as the freedom movement that has preceded it, was steeped in religious rhetoric, the consequences of which we still bear today. Various colonial and post-colonial examples cited by my fellow speakers have only served to highlight the entrenched nature of religion in civil life, in all aspects of Indian civil life. And I'm very sorry to Mr. Roy that religion and politics cannot be confined to separate boxes. There is no dichotomy, we have established that. Now, moving on to the Honorable retired High Court judge, we must say that when the constitution makers vision a distinctly secular nation which would be divided, which would be distinct from religious institutions, they obviously did not expect that one day the very basis of the secular nation as enunciated in the preamble would be challenged by litigation in the Supreme Court itself. Now, the politicization of religion is hardly surprising given that religion is deeply entrenched in all aspects of Indian civil life and society. Religion in India has become an institution in and of itself, as Shampuna has pointed out. It has become the language of the masses, it has become the medium of expression, it has become the language of articulation. When the majority of the masses' concern is based around the concept of religion, it is bound that politics will only naturally reflect the same. As well established by my team members, religion is not a personal, introspective matter for the majority of Indians. Rather, it permeates every aspect of Indian society. As such, may not every Indian of the 1.5 billion in the country have access to political institutions or political modes of thinking, religion influences the political demands such that it becomes the medium of articulation and such that it becomes a medium of their political thought process. Unfortunately, the very political scenario of India prevents any issues other than those of religion to take political center stage. Vote banks of religious minorities, appeasement of religious minorities have continued to yield significant influence over political decision making, and religious appeasement has become the mainstay of the present day and age. Narrow sectarian and caste issues continue to dominate politics today. Thus, religious identity has become a significant factor of political mobilization over the years, and the very statistics cited before me only serves to further validate that point. In fact, the very sweeping religious agenda that has become unmistakably widespread in India all around us is based on chauvinistic revivalism, which has permeated and influenced even statist institutions today. Unfortunately, the politicization of religion means that there are no other feasible alternatives except those of religion for political mobilization. Religion has become the dominating determinant in the current political status quo. It is regrettable that when the current regime draws its ideological inspiration solely on religious lines, and not material ones, mind you, it is regrettable that the opposition alliance, the grand alliance that we have today, is also engaging in religious rhetoric, not negating it. Most recently, the demand for a caste census places religion-based identity politics at the very center of the current Indian demands. And regrettably, it again puts religion-based identity politics at the very center, if in a subtle way. So, the opposition might try to point out that modern India is based on a democratic secular foundation, with the majority of its voters being influenced by political and not religious factors. However, ladies and gentlemen, this premise stands false on two grounds. First, the repeatedly religiously motivated attacks on the very institutions of the state, on the very foundation of the modern Indian state. Excuse me.
Thank you.
First, the repeatedly religious motivated attacks on the foundation of the Indian state is proof of the incursion of religion into statist institutions. When religious symbolism is used to appeal to the masses, whether it be the political inauguration of a temple or placing a king's religious scepter in the house of the parliament. Secondly, the argument that Indians vote on political and not religious grounds is misplaced besides being elitist. Elections have repeatedly shown the success of religion-based identity politics, and it's true that the average masses respond more to religious issues. When the eviction, oppression, persecution of religious minorities via legislative means or the inauguration of a temple by state actors takes precedence over issues related to jobs, employment, education, healthcare, and so forth, we can definitely say that Indians are more religious than they are political. Now I have a few issues with the opposition's arguments, which I will further enunciate when I come to sum up. First, sir, Mr. Sarkar, we are not confined, India is not confined within the geographical limits of 86 by 1 College Street. We have to move out of it. We cannot say that this august gathering, besides being elitist in itself, reflects the Indian masses. We are a colonial legacy, and you have highlighted that in your constantly referring to Cambridge and Oxford. Mr. Shumok Roy, I beg to differ that religion and politics are two separate entities in India. Indeed, they have become enmeshed, as very subtly highlighted by my fellow speakers. And the Honorable High Court Judge, Mr. Subrata Talukdar, I must say that the issue does not revolve on what is true religion. It is to show that Indians are more political than they're religious, a burden which the opposition, mind you, has failed to prove today. Indeed, I pity them, because
Vivek,
it
please
becomes,
wind up.
just 10 seconds more, indeed it becomes very difficult to argue against a self-evident truth. And that is why, in the absence of any other feasible alternatives of political mobilization, on 22nd January, it will again be proved that religion is influenced, that politics is influenced by religion, and the politicization of religion means that Indians will continue to be more religious than they are political. Thank you.
Rick, thank you. Apologies for a bit of side chatter. I was trying to sort out the summing up for the opposition. Jawhardar's schedule is like a veritable ticking time bomb. So rather than taking seconds away from the debate, let's move on to Tanya Bharadwaj.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I have some very big shoes to fill, so I hope you'll pardon me for being nervous. The motion today reads that Indians are more religious than political. To start off with, I would like to bring your attention to the word Indians. The term is like an umbrella, and under it, we find people of different geographies, races, and physiologies. And what binds them together is not religion, nor is it language, nor is it customs, but the glues of politics that hold us all together into one political unit. The socio-political landscape and collective destiny of India has been framed till date by our political affairs, despite religion having immense significance in our society. And in my speech, I would like to try to convince you how that is true, and in the process, show that what the proposition is propagating is false. Indians, since ancient times, have always prioritized political stability over anything else. I might be oversimplifying, but time is of the essence, so I'll make this argument like this. We've had foreign rulers coming for a really long time. These foreign rulers came from faraway places with foreign religions, and then they ruled over us. Might be there were forced conversions, there was jizya, but did we fight crusades at any point? No, we didn't have long, bloody religious wars on our nation. We evolved, we maybe converted, we maybe came up with reformist religions and moved on. I think that shows how our society prioritizes political stability over maybe religious identity to a large extent. Next, I would like to address the issue of religious crimes, which the proposition has already brought up, but it is to our favor, unfortunately. Now, religious crimes. Now, religious crimes have been increasing, right? And one might be wondering that this is because religiosity or people have become more religious. But I think that is wrong. If anything, this indicates that, okay, I'll reframe this like this. Any religious crime is either politically motivated, or there are political players or political parties going to gain by it. And because of that, this religious crime has an inherent political nature. And so this is just a subcategory of political crimes. And religious crimes don't really exist as a category by themselves. Now, moving on, I would also like to talk about the phenomenon of party society. Now, the Indian political economy seems to transcend religion, class, gender, caste, and take on this partisan nature, whereby the party you vote for becomes a huge marker of your personal identity. And I think most of you will agree with me that this has been happening, and it is happening. Now, when this happens, the party starts to take on the role of a moral guardian, which is supposed to be just the lookout of religion as an institution. Now, there are some other characteristics of party society. Number one, It is the protection of constituency and expansion from election to election, renewal of power and influence through re-election, and election being a very important event in that society. And if you think about it, all these characteristics do apply to our present day Indian society and also the past. Now, it's not just by being partisan that we are showing how political we are and how, we are becoming more and more political by the day. It's also through our activism. Again, a member of the proposition brought up this point, but I think in the wrong way. It was to our favor. Now, there's been activism which has challenged religious norms. The example of that is decriminalization of homosexuality. And that shows that Indians are challenging religious norms, and there is a bid for same-sex marriages becoming legal, and there's an active social movement taking place in the country as we talk. Sure, things are taking time, but that doesn't mean that Indians are more religious than political. Again, there is growing support for the Uniform Civil Code. That again shows that Indians are okay with a political push which might supersede religious considerations at some point or the other. And that again shows our preponderance of politics over religion in our society. Now there's another development I've seen socially at dinner parties and other places where you'll meet a person and you ask them some normal questions and they'll be like, oh, no, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. Now what is this difference between religious and spiritual? One would believe that religious is a synonym and not an antonym of communal. The way politicization of religion has happened in our society, it is unfortunate that Indians are trying to dissociate by calling themselves this adjective of religious, rather hiding under the garb of being spiritual. But they don't really mean two different things. Let not this communal polarization suggest to you the proposition of increasing religiosity or being increasingly religious. If you look closer, you will see the undercurrent is political in nature. And what this indicates is the rise of this new brand of politics in India, which comes under this term of religious nationalism. And I don't think that brand of nationalism suggests a high level of religiousness in society. If anything, it suggests a highly politicized society. Okay, so I've heard the bell, so I am going to sum up. And I'm going to sum up with the last statement that yes, politics is religion is a catalyst in the political equation in our country, but so are class, gender, caste, and many others. And they are all inherently political in nature, as is religion. And it is a means to an end, and the end is political. And with that, I hope to have convinced you a little bit to come to our side and believe that Indians are more political than religious. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. With a slight departure from debating norms, not that we want less of Tanya, but the question is, since she's spoken last by team debating norms, she's got to do the summing up first, but a slight departure will make the... Jorda will miss you for the last 10 minutes. Thank you. Keep us in your mind. With that note, let us request, Tanya was asking us the difference between the spiritual and the religious. One sarcastic commentator said a few years back that all the states without prohibition were spiritual because they believed in the spirit. Now on that note, let us see what interpretation awaits us in terms of a 3-minute, brief, concise summing up for the proposition first.
The essential feature of summing up is to sum up how one side has won against the other. And I'm here to convince you that the motion as it stands today actually passes. And for that, I've come to ask for a vote of confidence, not based on hollow rhetoric, as the side opposition has suggested, but rather based on facts and on the current political status quo. Sir, this House believes that Indians are more religious than political, and I'm here to ask you as a summer up for our side to convince that side proposition has inherently won the debate based on logics and pure fact than just hollow rhetoric as the side opposition has put up. Now I've inherently highlighted how elitism is ingrained in the opposition's arguments. They fail to move beyond the geographical confines of 86/1 College Street, and maybe it is not their fault. Maybe the cocoon of privilege prevents them from looking beyond. Now, I have highlighted the colonial legacy of presidency, and that legacy was once again highlighted when Mr. Sarkar inherently retorted to Oxford and Cambridge dictionaries and did not bother to look into the current status quo as is prevalent in Indian society. Now they have tried to highlight that political camouflage actually involves religion, as the last speaker on the opposition side, Ms. Bharadwaj, has tried to say that our argument is literally false because caste, class, gender, race, etc., and as well as religion is moved towards political ends. I agree, that is what our entire debate is about, that is what our entire argument is about. Thank you for conceding to our argument. Now they have said that activism challenges religious beliefs. Sure, but say that to the literally troll army that the current regime has employed to comment hateful comments on every social media post that critiques Bharatiya Sanskriti. Now they have said that India is a pluralistic country. It is democratic, not theocratic. We agree. But how far? We have come down 2 elections. A decade has passed, and India seems dangerously on the verge of becoming a theocracy. Does that not highlight that Indians are inherently more religious than they are political? Now they have said that there are many aspects of identity.
Please summarize. Yeah? 3 minutes. Just summarize.
They have highlighted how many aspects of identity are not determined by religion. We have said that every aspect of Indian civil life is determined by religion, and Indian society stands on the edifice of religion, an argument which they have conceded. And also, we have shown against their arguments, against Mr. Roy's argument, that religion and politics are 2 separate boxes. We have shown how they are enmeshed and integrated into each other, and thus we argue that Indians are more religious than they are political, and no matter how much problems the opposition has with the framing of the motion still stands, will stand, and continue to stand until there is an India which is communal tensions free, riots free, and until that India is achieved, the opposition will have to continue to woo the audience with a utopia, as they cannot suggest tangible means, but rather hollow rhetoric. Thank you.
Tanya Bharadwaj for the final 3-minute summary of this wonderful debate.
Hello again. So, to start off with, Jyotirmoy spoke about the conflation between religion and religiosity. But you also admitted that there is a politicization of religion. And now, because of that, there is no conflation between the two. It has acquired a political nature, religion, and because of that, it is a means to a political end, and it remains to be just a tool. Again, then after that, you admitted that religion has been weaponized. And again, the fact that it has been weaponized means it's acquired a political nature. So you're sort of again helping us prove our point that Indians are more political than religious, where the means do not justify the labeling, the ends do, and the ends are very clearly political. You also spoke about Hindu resurgence. I spoke about emerging religious nationalism as the brand of politics in India now, and I think you're conflating Hindu resurgence for that. What is happening is there is this new brand of politics which has been emerging for the last 10-15 years, which is very strongly religiously nationalistic, right? And you cannot just conflate that with Hindu resurgence and define it as an act of being religious, because at the end of the day, it is more of a political agenda that it's fulfilling rather than a religious agenda. Sampurna, you spoke about how temples and churches have not suppressed suppressed politics. But my dear, building a temple has been a part of a manifesto for a party for the last 10-15 years, and they finally succeeded. So I don't think temples and churches are exempt from the way you were trying to label them to be as completely different institutions. They have become a part of the political machinery and weaponized in our society. Again, you spoke about how religion was, you admitted in your verbatim saying that religion has been weaponized during the mutiny of 1857. And again, if it has been weaponized, it's acquired a political nature. And again, that proves our point more than yours.
This is a kind of net practice for something we will all be doing probably in the month of May as things look over here. You've got to make your minds up and decide. You've listened to a very succinct, very power-packed, and very pointed set of arguments made on both sides. And on sometimes there was a lot of logical overlap that is all but natural. And once you have voted and once you've left the room, please remember the great words of Benjamin Disraeli, who at the conclusion of every debate used to say that we have just been through an exercise of supreme intellectual dishonesty. Right? So, what they have said, they have. Don't hold anything against them. And I believe an award for the best speaker will be made for the risk of my physical and, life and living integrity. I will have nothing to do with it. So, what was honestly a brilliant debate in its content, in its oratory, in its style, and in its conflicting logic, I think, like most of the House, the speakers, you've got me confused. I'm ever so happy that I'm not voting. And on that note, let us see, those of you who felt that the opposition has convinced you, that your courage of conviction has been on the side of the opposition, and you concur with them that religion in India is not more powerful than politics. Please put your hands up. That next time when you are a little bit far away from Presidency and College Street and you think our future is in the hand of the scoundrels, think of these four faces. Thank you. Good evening.
Just a moment. Now I request, before we declare the best speaker, our President Sudhansu Bhattacharya is here. He will present mementos to all our esteemed speakers and moderator. First, Dr. Kunal Sarkar. Shomok Rai. Shubroto Talukdar. Tania Bharadwaj. Now to the students, Sampurna Sharnal. এই তোরা যাস না, খাবার প্যাকেট আছে, বস। জ্যোতির্ময় দত্ত, ঋগ ভট্টাচার্য, Srinjoy Devgupta. Now to announce the best speaker, I request our past president, Honorable Barrister Jayanto Mitro, to declare the best speaker.
After hearing this, listening to this brilliant debate, I thank myself for not having judgeship, which I was offered long time back. Had I been a judge, I would never have been able to make up my mind as to which side should win and which side should lose. The speakers on both sides were absolutely brilliant. It was very difficult to choose who is the best speaker. In fact, if you ask me, each one of the speakers on this side and that side had scored well. Therefore, when I am announcing the best speaker, please remember one thing, that this is only selective of 3 judges who are sitting over there. It is their choice. You may disagree with them, but then again, the unanimous choice has been in respect of only one person, and that is Sampurna.
voucher of 2,000 rupees.
And a book voucher of 2,000 rupees. All the best. Thank you.